Hello, and welcome to another World of UX podcast. This is your host, Darren Hood. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. A special welcome, all of you joining us for the first time. Hello, and welcome to the podcast. We are today recording another segment in the Ask Me Anything. I should call this Ask Us Anything, because we're gonna be talking about things. Not just gonna be me answering questions, but I got a couple of guests joining me again on today, and we're gonna get into some discussion about some hot topics in UX. I do not know anything that the people are going to ask me about, although we did talk about a few things before we started recording, but I'm being kept in the dark purposely. We want to make sure that we're answering and addressing topics very candidly, things that are on the minds of our guests, things on the mind of a lot of our listeners out there. So let us go ahead and dive in today. I'm going to introduce my first guest, first timer on the show today, and she's going to introduce herself. Introducing to the World of UX podcast today, Jenessa Oliver. Hello, Jenessa. Welcome to the show. Glad you were able to join us today. Let's get some of those sound effects. All right. All right, Jenessa, go ahead and tell the people who you are.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jenessa. I am a UX designer. I've been working in UX design for about 3 years now, I want to say. Been working in tech for closer to 8 years. Made my pivot in, I believe it was December of 2021. I think that's what I always try to remember when I think about when I made my little transition. But yes, I am based in Atlanta. I try to keep myself as involved in the UX community virtually as much as possible. But yeah, very excited to be here today.
It's great. Glad to have you on the show. And Jenessa, I'm going to pause for the call. Show them the cup. Jenessa, show them
Oh,
the cup.
and it's almost empty, but I've got the blur is messing with it.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah,
okay.
there
We
we go.
got it. There it is. There it is. All right. So glad Jenessa also is somebody we actually met on LinkedIn. Just to
Yes.
share a little bit of backstory there. Jenessa is one of the people who used to come out to the Chit Chat Hour, which we now call the Kaizen UX Rendezvous. So we get to interact on a regular basis there. And I thought, wow, Jenessa really speaks well. She really loves the discipline. She'd be a great person to have on the show. And so thank you for honoring us and taking the time to come and be a part of the show on today. Now let's introduce our second guest. And this is a person who's been on the show before. Somebody, I think, if I remember correctly, other guests, we met in 2015 at the UX Strategy Summit. If I remember correctly, that's where we met. And so we've been interacting for almost a decade now, or about a decade this year. And he's been on the show before, but I'm going to have him come on, and everybody might not be familiar with him or may not have heard the show that he was on before. So we are going to introduce and have the second guest come out and tell his story. Jonathan Bowman, welcome to the show, Jonathan. We got to give Jonathan a shout out. Welcome to the show, sir.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's also kind of cool to think about Jenessa only being a UX designer for 3 years. That's crazy because we just spent some time before the show just getting to know each other and talking. So I'm really excited to have someone who has a fresh perspective. So I won't bore you guys with the details. Yeah, I hope you guys know who I am, but I'm right now in East Texas and super excited to be here, super excited to ask questions. And I've been doing UX for a long time. And yeah, ready to get rolling.
Okay, so here we go. We didn't waste any time, did we? We're like, about 4.5 minutes in. These folks are gonna have some questions. Again, the questions, Jenessa, you're going to kick us off. That's okay. Jenessa will kick
Okay.
us off with a question, and we may ping pong back and forth, and then Jonathan will have a question, and then we'll flip it. And my guess is we'll probably have two. Last time we did this, we were only able to get as far as 2 questions. There was so much that was said, although we did cover a lot of topics. So for those of you out there listening, if that may happen, we might go 3 questions deep. We don't know. We have no idea. I have no idea. But we know we're going to have fun doing it. We know that you're going to get some genuine input from myself and from my guests today. So let's go ahead and dive in, shall we, with the first, trying to find my buttons here. Topic number 1. What do you have, Jenessa? Question number 1.
All right. So my first question is, and we honestly, guys, we got into this in the beginning of the show, but I thought it was such a good conversation to have. What is the most underrated skill that you believe most UX designers would benefit from?
Oh, goodness. Most underrated skill.
It's a good one.
Oh, my goodness. Let me go through my Rolodex here a little bit, and I'm thinking about a lot of different things. The most underrated skill, the one that bubbles to the front of my Rolodex right now, has to do with relationship building. It has to do with relationship building because everybody, today, you got your Figma jockeys out there. You got your people that are trying to turn UX into or UI into UX. You've got your people who I actually had a course that I just started taking recently, and the person was talking about how AI can help you to take care of the more mundane tasks. They literally said this and have time to be more creative. And I heard that person say that. I'm going, wait a minute. Be more creative. UX is not about being creative. It's about problem solving, which is a big skill. But then even behind the problem solving, we cannot get anywhere on our own as UX professionals, or as much Figma or XD or whatever tools you're using. People like to wrap tools around everything that we do, and they might like to make tools more valuable and more important what they really are. And even the fundamentals. Fundamentals are the fundamentals. The more fundamentals you know, the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more you can accomplish, the more strategically minded you can be when you have more tools in your toolbox. If you have a toolbox and all it has in there is one screwdriver, then that's the limit of your strategy. But the more you have, you got a screwdriver, you have multiple types of screwdriver, you have multiple types of saws in there, you have sandpaper, whatever, you have more and more tools, then there are more ways you could potentially approach the work. But even in the midst of all of that, we can't accomplish our work as UXers with UX alone. Eventually, we need programmers. We need QA people. We need product managers and project managers and scrum masters. And there's such a wealth of people that we engage with. Our ability to interact with these people, to empathize with these people, because they all have different sets of needs. They're all bringing something different to the table. And what we achieve, the solution that we drive, is based on what we all brought to the table, not just with UX. So we can sing the praises of UX all we want, and we can talk about the value prop, the great value prop that UX offers all we want. But what we roll out is still based on the soup that we all made and the ingredients that we all brought. And so that requires not just the UX skill, but the ability to constructively and practically engage with all of the other players that are contributing to what we're working on. And so we've got to have that high level of EQ so we can learn how to listen to what other people have to say, to learn how to ascribe the value, because everybody's got a value prop. But we don't understand what that value prop is unless we build those relationships, unless we learn what other people's responsibilities are, unless we learn about what their challenges are so we can empathize with them. I mean, think about it. The sweet spot for UX is trying to find out how best, what solution we can come up with that meets the needs of the user needs, business needs, and constraints. And we don't know the constraints. The UX person doesn't know the constraints. So we talk to these other people. We build relationships with other people. We go to lunch with other people. We sit and we watch other people work. And the more we learn about them, we become better UXers. Because now We drive solutions and we keep other people in mind when we do that. And relationship building is at the core of that. So definitely relationship building. And a lot of people are trying to do UX work without having any relationship building skills. You are going to sell yourself short. You are going to fall well short of your goal because you could not engage with other people and you did not factor what other people brought to the table into your work, into your solution. So definitely, definitely. Short answer on that one from what I tend to usually do.
It's a
To
great
steer
one.
myself on that one. But yeah, it's got to be relationship building and we need to be better at it. We need to place more value upon it and we need to work more. We need to drive more in that arena so we can make it a part of who we are. Because really, whether we like it or not, it is. And that's another reason why jerks don't do well in UX. Or you might get the job, you might get the check, but you're not going to accomplish
Yeah.
very much because you don't get along with anybody. You can't interact with anybody. You don't value what other people bring to the table. So every time that happens, and the answer to that is something that's bad, you just brought the needle down a little bit more every time. Relationship building is key. Critical. So thank you for that. Jonathan,
You know,
it is on you.
Hey,
I think that's a great one for sure. Yeah. So I love this concept, especially for, coming into the new year of not only thinking about what we do professionally, but understanding like, you know, our home life and that balance. So I guess my question to you is, when people are looking to do well in their career, how does balance play a role in that? And what lessons could they take away from your experience with balancing both personal life and career life?
When you ask that question, you make me think about something we were talking about before the recording that there's a philosophy that I embrace. If you touch it, excel at it. And so I don't like participation trophies. I was coming along when playing Little League Baseball, when participation trophies started to become a thing. It was starting to make its way across the country. I want to do my absolute best. In the midst of that, I was an all-star. I was actually an all-star Little League Baseball player. I touched it, excel at it. So that was it. And so that said, though, why, and it made me think about something Jenessa said, we were talking about this earlier, why limit that to the work? Why excel at the work and don't excel at my family life? Why excel at work, but don't excel at making sure that I'm taking care of my own personal health? Darren, I thought this was about UX. You want to be a good UXer? You need to be alive. So take care of yourself. If you really want to be a person that's going to impact everybody to the nth degree, then why are you limiting what you bring to the table to UX? I guarantee you, if somebody's doing that, then they're going to fall short when it comes to UX as well. Because one of the things I love about UX is such a holistic discipline that it requires us to be focused on so much more, so many things, and so many contributing factors, and so many moving parts that, years ago, I fell in love with ISO. I helped a company achieve its ISO certification. I drove the training behind it. I did a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, and they got their ISO certification. I was the key player in accomplishing that. In so doing, this is where I started actually really cementing the mindset of if you touch it, excel at it. Because I fell in love with ISO. I brought ISO home with me. I was implementing ISO principles in a way that I was addressing the way that my house was structured, the way that I did a lot of things. And so it was, why just, you're a good UXer, right? Everybody on this call, we all want to excel at UX. Don't you want to have a good UX in your life? Because if you're going to be a good UXer, you can't just do it at work. You can't clock out and stop paying attention to UX. So you can UX the way that you handle your health. You can UX the way that you handle your family. You can UX the way you handle your vacation. You can UX the way you handle your finances. I just do it everywhere. People ask me, Darren, I know you do a lot of stuff. How in the world do you do everything? Because of UX everything. I've got UX everything. I have rest on my calendar. I'm going to make sure that I had somebody tell me once, you need to take time to rest there. And the person didn't know me. They just met me. You need to take time to rest. If you don't rest, you're going to fall apart doing all the stuff you're doing. And I told them, I have rest on my calendar. I'm the head of a movie group. I don't think either of you knew that. I'm the head of a movie group. That helps me get away from the computer. I might be in the top of the theater with my iPad checking email before the trailers come on, but I'm going to max that time. So I'm going to make sure that I'm taking care of everything. Got all my ducks in a row. I'm going to make sure my wife's taken care of. I'm going to make sure she doesn't have any needs out there. I'm going to make sure my cat, we got 5 cats. I'm going to make sure my 5 cats are taken care of. So I touch it, I excel at it. And so I want to make sure that my quality of life is set. And here's where all of that, somebody might be thrown by all these answers. Here's the beauty of it. To me, I never have to shift gears. So that I'm the same person when I'm doing my UX work. I'm the same exact person when I do everything else. So I apply the same principles to everything. So as complicated as what I said may sound, I do the same thing everywhere I go. So I never change. I told somebody once that I'm the same person all the time. And the person said, they're going to laugh at me because they're going to hear this. They go, I remember when you told me that. The person I told this to, they said, no, Darren, you talking smack, Darren. No way. Nobody's the same all the time. Yeah, I am. I'm always the same. I don't lie. You couldn't pay me to lie. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to treat Jenessa differently than I treat Jonathan and vice versa. I'm going to be very respectful at all times. I'm going to be respectful with my team members all the time. I'm going to have that same gear. I know how to shift down and shift up, but I basically drive the same. My transmission is the same. My gears might not all be the same, but my transmission is. If you get that metaphor. I know Jenessa loves metaphors. There's one for you. Nobody ever takes off. So I found that it's just easy. It makes it easy to sleep. I don't have to remember what I said to Jonathan when I talked to Jenessa because I represented myself honestly at all times. The people who have different stories to everybody, those people are running themselves in the ground. I don't live in the land of ulcers. I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm not going to do it to anybody else. So I know definitely a longer answer on that one, but does it make sense? It
Yeah.
makes it simple.
Totally.
So now, hey, Darren, how do you get so much done in a day? Well, because I know what I'm going to get done today. I know what I'm going to get done. So it's easy. I know what to do. And I found out when you're organized, you get more done and you get them done in a very efficient manner. I found out that efficiency is easier and it makes you more productive. So if we opt into efficiency, yeah, you get more done. And it makes me a better UX person because I'm always looking for ways to optimize whatever I touch. How about that?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Jonathan, it's your turn again, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you said a lot of really awesome things, and I kind of want to ask another question that's related because you kind of sparked my interest there with some of the cool points you brought up. So, can you give us an example of something that you apply UX to in a personal life?
Let's see, examples of where I UX things in personal life. I'm going to talk about movies. I believe movie going is to be a science. And I do that. So I believe in buying movie tickets in advance. Well in advance in some cases. I always sit on the back row. I always sit on the back row of the end of the back row. I know that there's a sweet spot in the theater for sound, but I don't want to sit there because I might sit behind somebody who will ruin the event for me. And I want to have a good user experience when I go to the movies. So I want to be in a place where I don't have to worry about, we go to a theater where there's so much leg room between the rows, you don't have to move to let anybody by. That's a part of it. I'm not going to go to this theater where I'm going to be put in some kind of sardine can. So I want to sit somewhere that's more comfortable. There's one theater we go to, they have heated seats. 2 theaters we go to, they have heated seats. Where we go to see a particular movie,
Wow.
the geographic location has to be a place. I'm not going to go to a place in the metropolitan Detroit area to see a theater that predominantly leans one way or another based on the type of movie we're going to see, because it will detract from the experience. I want to make sure that we have a certain type of food. We're going to have either the tray that holds the food or the tray that holds the beverage. I want to everything, all the ducks are in a row. And again, somebody's going to say, Darren, that's a lot. Not when you're committed to it. You can make seemingly the most painstaking, most laborious thing easy if you structure it. So that's what I do. In our movie going outings, I buy movies in advance, or we have private showings, and not buy movies, I buy tickets in advance. We have private showings. If we have enough people interested in this particular movie, we're going to have a private showing, so there's nobody there but us. We're going to determine the time that we're going to go. So the time that we go, we're UXing the whole thing. The entire thing. I want everybody to have their tickets paid for by such and such a time. I even subsidize the outings. You only have to pay $12. Don't worry about anything else. So we make sure that it's easy on that, and we make sure everybody's got the proper seating arrangement. We make sure everybody's going to get the proper amount of food, get the food in the right way. Make sure you're there by a certain amount of time. This is the way. So everything is UX'd. There actually isn't anything that I do that's not UX'd. Whether it's running a fantasy football league, of which I'm the commissioner over about 5 or 6 fantasy football leagues. I'm the commissioner over a couple of fantasy basketball leagues. But everything, there's always a proper UX. We're going to have the draft on this day at this time, and let people know in advance so we don't have anybody doing auto draft. Some people understand that and can't stand auto draft. But I believe in UXing everything because we want people to be able to enjoy things to the max. And I know that at the heart of every optimized user experience is that type of an optimized prep and perspective and an identification of every micro experience and paying attention to that micro experience to make sure that there are no hiccups in it, no pitfalls, no potholes in that experience. Anticipate where the problems are, engage in the risk mitigation, offset the risk mitigation, make sure that we don't have any problems. And I do it in everything that I do. I've been the head of a photography group before. I am the head. I stopped doing that. I'm still the head. I am still part of a photography team, though, and I'm going to make sure that my experience and anything that I'm responsible for, that everything is UX'd properly through risk mitigation, through identification of micro experiences, through identification of where things can go wrong, make sure they don't. And that's how I do it. But, my example was movie going. I don't just get a ticket and go to the movies. That you're opening doors for all types of problems when that's the case, if you just go. Because Murphy's Law is always there. If something can go wrong, it will. And so I want to know, okay, well, I've identified 12 things that can go wrong. How can we eliminate that? And then when I get to work, I don't stop. So it's still the same for me. I never stop UXing. I literally never stop.
That's awesome.
Jenessa.
Well, actually, Jonathan took my next question, which is totally. Oh no, that's awesome. It was natural based off of his previous question, so it was the right direction. I'm gonna pivot a little bit.
Okay.
What has been the most rewarding, and when I say rewarding, it can be whether the project was a failure or a success, but the most rewarding project that you've ever worked on, and what made it rewarding for you? What takeaways made it a rewarding experience to work on that project?
God. Oh, man. There's a tie. And one of them was, because one of them wasn't a UX project. It was, but it wasn't.
Okay.
At the time I was doing, so I'm going to tell 2 stories. If that's okay with the 2 of you, I'm going to tell 2 stories. Because one of them, and I tell this story, I rarely tell this story when I'm doing UX work. It depends on who the audience is. But there was a time by this time I was doing UX part-time during the day. And I was freelancing in the evenings. So I was doing web design, doing all the UX stuff as part of the web design stuff. But during the day, I was brought in. I used to be one of the only, here's a blast from the past. Man, less than 1% of people are going to remember this when I mention it. Either of you familiar with a product called Authorware? A software product called Authorware. It was a Macromedia product. Got one person out there saying, I remember that. I was one of the only Authorware experts in Metro Detroit, and was brought in and it wasn't just Authorware, it was Authorware, and it was also Captivate, which used to be called, either you familiar with Captivate, which used to be a Macromedia product, and now it's an Adobe product. It used to also be called RoboDemo before the name was changed to Captivate, and I used to sit on the advisory board for that product. And I was brought in, I was hired to come in on a contract basis, to come in to help OnStar do transition to e-learning. So I was already a certified e-learning person. I was a certified master trainer by this time. And during the day I was doing instructional design. I wasn't doing UX, but I was applying UX principles with my instructional design work, which is why I actually may have coined the phrase learning experience, but never made an issue of it because I just thought it made sense. So I was running around talking about LX, but this makes sense to me. So I just called it UX, did my work, went on about my business. I've never been one after fanfare. So I just did it and I went on my way. But I was brought in because they were trying to transition to do more e-learning and web-based learning, or WBT as they call it, or CBT, computer-based training. I specialize in all of these things. And by sitting on the advisory board with Macromedia, they wanted me to come in and do this stuff because everything they did was pretty much instructor-led. And they were trying to transition, and they didn't have nobody on the team specialized in it. So I was brought in to do that. And I overheard a conversation. I heard some people talking about how that they were trying to open the first offshore call center for OnStar. And I heard the whole thing. They had already leased the space. They had already interviewed and hired all of the customer service reps. Everything was in place. They already had the opening date. And the Philippines came to them at the last minute and said that they would not approve of GM sending an OnStar equipped vehicle to have on site for training. They did not know what to do. Everything is in place. We spent all of this money. We've interviewed and hired all of these people, and we can't send a vehicle. What are we going to do? Right place, right time. In that moment, hearing that UX thing, hearing the requirements, hearing the business problem, hearing all the things that they had, problems that they had to solve, taking 3 steps, I turned around and I came back. I said, excuse me, I heard everything you just said. And these were people I worked with. They didn't come to me. I came to them. I said, what if I told you I have an idea how to solve all those problems? And they said, what? So I pitched and came up with the name of it on the spot, everything. And I called it the OnStar 360. And in it, and this was a Flash-based course, but it was UX-based, but it was an LX product, but it was UX-based. I understood all of their problems they were trying to solve. I understood what the needs were of the stakeholders. I understood the needs of the new trainees. I understood all the business needs. And I came up with this vehicle, and I created the whole thing in Macromedia Flash. It was a web-based solution that was deployed because they did approve of it. It was done. It was it was done. They were able to open on time. I'll tell you what it was in a minute, but they were able to open on time, under budget, no problems. An introduction to what OnStar was. Check. Something that they could go in and hear actual recordings of calls. Check. We were able to roll out a training solution that included an OnStar simulation, Flash-based. OnStar simulation where they could play with, they had this big screen that looked like an OnStar dashboard. They could sit in a chair and just look up and hit buttons. It was like they were interacting with, every step was as if they were interacting with OnStar in an OnStar equipped vehicle. You would not have known that they did not have an OnStar equipped vehicle. And I just learned just recently that they just stopped using that in about 2019, 2020. They just stopped using it. They were using this. This is how they train people for years. Anywhere where they wanted to open an offshore call center and could not ship an OnStar equipped vehicle, this is how they train people, through the OnStar 360. And of course, OnStar didn't change, so this stuff had a very long shelf life and everything was fine. But that's something that I am extremely proud of to this day. I still have CDs of it in my basement. of this solution. The second thing I'm most proud of is we were rolling out for an automotive OEM who I believe nameless. We will not identify who the customer was in this case, and this was a UX project where there were when anytime you have an automotive OEM, Nissan, Honda, Ford, GM, whoever it is, anytime there's a new vehicle coming out, they always have what's called, back then, I think they probably still do the same thing. There's always a reveal site. Hey, this car is coming, public. This car is coming. And then they have a launch. Okay, the car is here. You can buy it now. You can go do a test drive now. And so there would always be a microsite that was rolled out for the reveal and for the launch. In this particular case, this vehicle was being reintroduced to the public. The company had stopped making this vehicle for years, and they're bringing it back, and they think that it could compete with a lot of other big name vehicles and take a huge chunk of the market share is what they're hypothesizing, is what they are expecting. And they put a lot of money, like at least a couple million, well, more than that, into that. So this is a big multi-million-dollar project. And so, as was my case, and I've always been a big Jesse James Garrett guy. For any of you out there that not familiar, if you go to images.google.com and search for JJG 5 planes, you will see the illustration of how Jesse James Garrett approached how design work should be done. That's the first process, the first formal process I ever embraced, to the point I still do it today. No matter what the company I work for is using, I retrofit it into 5 planes, and that's still what I do because it's embedded in me. Oh, what about double diamond, Darren? I do that, but I can retrofit that into 5 planes and still do the same exact thing. And I'm sure some people will see my talk about how the design processes are overrated. They're basically all the same. It's all semantics. So there's a way to do what I just mentioned with no problem. And I don't even have to tell anybody I did it, but I'm still doing 5 planes. But at any rate, I went through my progress or my process. I went through all my progressions, is what I'm trying to say here. And I made sure to get everything done for the reveal site. And we were working with a third-party agency, which is what a lot of big agencies would do. Sometimes we had the workloads too big, had to bring somebody else in. And they actually took everything that I did. They took my wireframes. They took everything I did. And they changed it because they wanted it to be fancier. They wanted it to pop more. Yeah, I learned to hate that word. I think we all do. That calls for a sound effect there, right? Forget about this pop. Everybody wants everything to pop. They never define that. Just stop with the pop. So, but at any rate, they wanted everything to pop. They wanted it to be very visually engaging. They wanted it to be something that they could go and win a visual design award for. So they took what I came up with and they modified it. And I was forced to change my wireframes to match what they were trying to do. I was forced to. Long story short, failed. Because they had these little spinning cursors that nobody could find anything, that's what people want to do on the internet, find stuff. So they couldn't find anything. Didn't work. Now it's time to do the launch site. We had a huge failure, millions of dollars tied to this new vehicle that's coming back. And we're about to do the launch site. And we went through all of our same progressions. We did all the same things. I walked everybody through the wireframes like I did the first time, and everybody was nodding their head like, okay. But one thing changed. The product owner, still feeling the pain of the failure from the reveal, said, because he looked at the third party and they were going to do the same exact thing. I had already said one of the reasons things fail before, I got to interject this, is because it was so different from the main site that the learning curve was off the charts. The cognitive load, people didn't know, where in the world is my cursor? Oh, it's there spinning and looking cute. Well, I don't know that. So I didn't know that was my cursor, so I got confused and left the site. So this time, I said, we need to make it similar. We need to eliminate the learning curve from the first time around. We need to make everything far more intuitive than we did because it wasn't intuitive. We need to eliminate that. We need to make it intuitive. We need to make it simple. We need to make everything clear. They have gone out to the Mojave Desert, done all these videos. We need to make it clear what we're doing, how they're engaging, and set better expectations, which we eliminated the first time because of the creative license that the people took first time around. And the product owner, after I presented my wireframe and explained what we're going to do this time that's going to make it work, he said, I know what you folks want to do. I appreciate what you were trying to do the first time. And I hear you, but this time, for the launch, we're going to do what Darren has told us to do. And I've never had anybody stand up for me like that before. Because they blew me off. The first time, they don't care what the UX person said, which is what visual designers tend to do and what developers tend to do. We don't want to do what the UX guy is saying. But when the product owner did that and you're getting paid because of what he told you to do, not only did they do what was told, that they were told, not only did they execute exactly what was on the wireframes. At the time, they said it turned out to be the best launch site in the history of that automotive OEM. And I'm still proud of that.
Wow.
To this day. There are so many stories I could tell, and thanks for bearing with the long story on that one, but I could tell so many stories or so many things we've done, so many wins, but those are the two that I'm the most proud of. And in both cases, the common denominator between the two is that I was allowed to take what I bring to the table and execute on that. And I tell people all the time, don't tell me what to do, tell me what you need. And then, like, the best boss I ever had in my life, he was not a UX professional, and he didn't know anything about UX, but he knew what he didn't know, and he knew to let me know what needed to be done, and he knew how to get out of my way. And we accomplished so much because of that. And I've also been in environments where the opposite happened.
Mm.
So sort of crazy, but yeah, that's what I'm most proud of.
Those are two big ones to be proud of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I love the discipline. As crazy as the discipline is right now, I will never stop loving UX. Ever. Real UX. So now you've both had an opportunity to ask a question each, and we still have extra time. Not like the first time we did this. We've got extra time if you folks want to take it. So right now we can just have like open floor, and anybody can do whatever you want to do. Let's just go from here, and we can sort of go into the home stretch at this point. What hot topic is on either of your minds? Because this has been all me. We haven't had a lot of discussion, and I'm thinking that we probably jump into some discussion here. But what is on you folks' minds that you'd like for us to just get into? So we're shifting from AMA to talking shop now, or fireside chat, as we like to say. What's on you folks' mind? What's been the biggest things? I'm asking now. What's been the biggest things happening in your life that you want to bring up?
Ooh. What can I say on the pod? No, I'm wondering. I don't want to. Jonathan, do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, I like the question because it's thought provoking, or it kind of lets you just throw stuff out there. But I think for me, it's really interesting to me to think, here we are, like at the beginning of a brand new year, and I'm just wondering, like, what are some things that we're going to like? What are some actions or behaviors we're gonna change that are gonna actually like do something good for the community? Like, do we have a plan for that? Um, yeah, that's my question.
I think to me, the big thing is I'm thinking about the talk I did in Austria about triaging UX. And I don't know why, but I just feel like this is going to be a fantastic year. I'm just really anticipating great things. And it's time to reclaim the discipline. And I'm going to hit this from a couple different angles, from a broad perspective, from a discipline-wide perspective. I think it's time to be a bit more forthright. As in your face as I have a tendency to be, I want to be more constructive in that being in your face. So I want to be in people's face with fundamentals. That's what I'm going to do. I talked to somebody on LinkedIn earlier today. I talked to somebody about wanting to spend more time talking about things such as how to execute on doing discovery work. So from a UX research perspective, what are some better ways for us to engage in discovery? What are some better ways for us to gain actionable and trustworthy data, or establish better goals? I mean, I just started a new job. And one of the things that I'm going to be doing is really serving at the forefront, serving at the on the front lines, I should say, with regard to benchmarking. I have always wanted to do benchmarking at a place where I work, so we can understand better and more constructively what is the current state of user experiences across our wave of products and solutions. We never get an opportunity to do that. So I've already started laying the foundation for that. And I'm starting to list out all of the tasks that users can perform with our software, the part that I'm associated with. And I want to establish miniature journey maps across all of those so we can know where do we have micro experience problems so that we can create a backlog for our developers to always have something to do to drive greater wins. To do more benchmark-oriented research. So so that's something that I want to do. I want to spend time sort of infusing that strategic mindset in UXers everywhere. And the people who are the posers and the retrofits and the upstarts, they're all going to reject that because they don't want to do work. They just want to get a check. They want to go to work and have their straw hat and their cane and hello, my honey, hello, my baby, and that's all they want to do. They're doing the equivalent of that at work, is do some kind of a song and dance on a straw hat and a cane and playing games. And they don't care that the user experience, that the discipline loses with their misrepresentation of who we are, as long as they're getting paid. And they're like kids I've seen at fast food restaurants, and they run the fast food joint in the ground because they don't care about the work. They just want to get their check. And then they run that place in the ground and that place closes. And then you see some of the same kids at another place. And as long as they keep collecting a check, they don't care. If UX is going to thrive, it's because more of us care. I want to infect people with care, so to speak. And I want to do more of that. And it's going to be by being in people's faces about fundamentals and trying to help people. I want to use the Universal Design book, the one that focuses on research, and highlight the discovery-based activities in that book and talk about that stuff till the cows come home. And really drive that and get more people excited about the work. Can we be more excited about the work than we are for our check? That's where I am.
It's awesome.
That's where I have always, I told people, somebody said, how much do you think you want? I interviewed for jobs before. How much are you asking? I said, you know what? I told somebody once, I really don't want to price myself out. I said, I just love doing the work. And that sounds corny to somebody. It sounds unrealistic to somebody. But there are some of us out here that just want to do the work. We know we've got bills. We know we got families to take care of and things like that. But at the very where the rubber meets the road, it's about the passion for doing the work. So I want to inspire. I said infect earlier. It's the same thing. I want to inspire more people to be in love with this discipline and to do the right things. I was talking to somebody on YouTube earlier, and the person was actually being sarcastic. You said we shouldn't say UX is UI. What solution do you have? They don't really want to answer. You can smell smart aleck people from a mile away. And the person didn't want an answer. And I say, you know what? I'm not going to answer you. I didn't give him an answer because he didn't really want an answer. And you're asking me something like you trust me. You don't trust me. You've already established that you don't trust me. And now you're asking me for a solution. You don't want a solution. And the fact that you're listening to this other person who's only been doing UX for 2 years and has no idea, they're not Jenessa. Jenessa, I've never heard Jenessa say anything off. She loves the discipline. You can tell. Her wisdom is beyond her years of experience. That's great. But the reality is she has 3 years. If you talk to her, she'll tell you she's got 3 years. She faces that. But there's a lot of people out there that don't. that person that person has like 2 years of real experience, if that, and the fact that they're out there trying to act like they're a thought leader tells you that they're suffering from Dunning-Kruger. And if you're listening to a person who's suffering from Dunning-Kruger as if they have 10 years, and you said that I'm yapping, but you said that this person actually said that. I'm yapping, but that person is not, means that there's something wrong with your Geiger counter. Your UX Geiger counter is faulty. Because you should have been, where can I follow you? Where is your content?
Yeah.
You should be saying that. We suffer because people keep listening to kids. You wouldn't ask a 5-year-old for financial advice. You wouldn't ask a 3-year-old to do your taxes. You wouldn't ask a 4-year-old to remove your tonsils. Everything in UX today is backwards. And part of my trying to inspire people is I want to inspire people to want to hear viable sources. Misinformation thrives in UX today because people insist on listening to people that shouldn't even be talking, frankly. And that needs to end. We suffer. The layoffs, one of the big reasons behind the layoffs that nobody wants to talk about is that there's a bunch of people who had jobs that they shouldn't have had in the first place, and they were telegraphing the entire time, you can lay me off and it won't hurt the business. That's what their life was saying. And so that's what they did. Don't fault people for laying folks off. They're businesses, not charities. They're businesses.
Yeah.
And they're in it
And
to
one
make
thing
money, to drive wins for investors and for
Mhm.
stakeholders. That's what they're there for. Get your head out of your behind and see what's really going on out here. See what's going on.
that
Go ahead, Jonathan. Sorry.
I was going to say that reminds me of when you were talking about Jesse James Garrett and his 5 layers of UX. One of the foundational pieces, right, is strategy, what the business needs.
Yes.
All these really fundamental things, right? So you know, if you go straight to Figma and now you're designing a high fidelity design without having that, you know, foundation. Yeah. Yeah. So that's really ringing true. Yeah.
It's insane. I saw somebody on LinkedIn recently, and they were talking about that stuff as if they were turning folks' light bulbs on. You know, UCD is UX enough? We need to be looking at business needs. Who are you talking to? We were already doing that. It's amazing how people have come in completely like remove people who know what they're doing from the process, put in people who don't, and then act like they're shedding light on something. And I love how one person said, he called him out. He said, your post was like it was, I actually took your post and asked AI to identify how much of it was AI. I just found out that your post actually was generated by AI. And the person admitted, well, yeah, actually I do. Okay, so you can't speak from the heart about the subject. There's a person to not listen to. I don't need an AI generated post. If I'm trying to, so AI came along at the wrong time. We're overrun with laziness. We're overrun with disingenuous presentations. We don't need AI. We don't need people thinking through. Either you have something to say or you don't. And a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And I can say something of quality. Jonathan can say something of quality. Jenessa can say something of quality, and we'll get 5 likes. Sometime combined. And somebody will say something ridiculous. Well, you know, we need to start focusing more on business needs with UX, and then we'll get somewhere. We're already doing that, man. What are you talking about? Some of us are already doing that. The guy that I was talking about on YouTube is acting like, do you have a solution? Really? You asked me that? You asked me if I have a solution. Really? So you're acting like I just happen to be like taking a break between sips of tea and chime in. You don't know what I've done? So some people are running in circles. The circles they run in do not afford them the opportunity to come across folks that are actually saying something worth listening to. Some people's circles are that dysfunctional and just grossly less,
Very true.
just information bankrupt. That you haven't come across, all the talks I've got out there. There was an app. I used to use an app called Metricool. Metricool said that my social media reach, it fluctuated between like 14 and 16 million. So my social media, between all my
Ooh.
different places where I have a footprint, that I have the potential at any time to have my work seen by up to 14 to 16 million people, and you've never seen me once. That means that the circles you're running in are that decrepit. Examine yourself.
Yes.
I know what circles I run in. I know Jenessa knows what circles she runs in. Jonathan knows what circles he runs in. Do you know what circles you run in? Do you know what's really being afforded to you in the circles you run in? I said, don't say UX UI. I told them UX UI did not start being used until about sometime between 2012 to 2014. It was never heard prior to that. Nobody said it. It came from people who didn't know who we were. It came from people that were bastardizing their way into the discipline from the visual design world that didn't know what else to call it. They started saying it. People started coming in, and that's what they heard when they came in, so they thought that it was accurate. It's not. It never has been. And so now I say this isn't a thing, and you're so grounded, you being whoever, is so grounded in anchoring bias that when they hear oxygen is good, that now you wonder whether or not you should be breathing on your own? Wait a minute. This is an oxygen-rich planet, so you can take that helmet off you've been wearing your whole life? Really? That's a discovery thing for you? Now, because when people have anchoring bias, they believe, for those of you that don't know, anchoring bias is when a person believes the first thing they hear. No critical thinking, no examination, no evaluation. Just take what they heard at face value and run with it. To the point where you can be in that state for 5 years, and then you hear something, and then you question it because you never heard anywhere, because you've been hanging around clueless people for that long. That's not, you can cast shade against me if you want to, but that's really a reflection of you. And then
Yeah.
I get in trouble for saying that.
I really was just gonna kind of piggyback off of what Darren was saying and then kind of tie in my 2 cents on what your question was, Jonathan. So as a young designer, right, as someone new to this discipline, something that I'm just super excited about right now is being like fully immersing myself in the learning space. I've carved out some time. I'll be getting off social media for a little bit, and I've got stacks and stacks of books, and I'm just looking forward to like learning and being in that learning space. And to any young designers that are listening, I would urge you to um regardless of your age, right? Like, I think a lot of times people think that if I'm a certain age and I've been in this, I'm in this new role, but I'm of a certain age, that they should act like they know everything. Please do not do that. Give yourself the space to seek information and learn as much as you can and talk to people. Read books, but also talk to people and fine tune your filter, right? Because not
Yes.
everyone's gonna be
Yes.
telling you exactly what's best for you, right? So you have to really, really fine tune that's and hone in on that skill because you can let in a lot of crap with the good stuff. So be open to that. It's always a beautiful thing to be willing to learn, but you also always have to have your discernment, there to keep the bad stuff away. So that's what I'm excited about. As a junior designer, Darren, you've pointed it out. I've always been very committed to, um being authentic in where I am in my
Yes.
my UX journey, right?
Yes.
I don't want to masquerade as having more experience than I do, mainly because if I'm ever put into a position where that level of experience that I'm pretending to have actually calls for a level of responsibility that I'm not equipped to actually take on, that's a recipe for disaster. I would
Yes, it
never want
is.
to do something like that. And so just be authentic where you are. There give Through time, you will grow, and you will grow at an appropriate level through as long as you are committed to excellence, as long as you are committed to being and showing up as your best self, and you will get there, but it's going to take time. Trying to rush that process is only going to make things much more chaotic for you.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
people think that you can do that, and there may be a small sliver of time where you can get away with masquerading as something that you're not, but it won't last. There's no sustainability in it. So, yeah, that's just my 2 cents, and that's what I'm
Yes.
excited about this year.
Yes.
Awesome.
Jonathan.
I feel it too. You guys are really awesome and hitting on this, hidden energy, right? That's there with the new year. A lot of people say that at the beginning of the new year. Some years they didn't, like during the pandemic. So I think we're in the clear now to say that and really mean it. But yeah, I know I'm with you guys. I think literacy is on the forefront of what I'm thinking about, and I love what you're saying, Jenessa. And by the way, you come off as a very awesome professional. I love the fact
Yes.
that
Thank
you've
you.
been doing this for 3 years. That's just like that is surprising, but you're gonna really go places for sure, especially
Yes.
with that
Yes.
attitude.
Thank you.
But yeah, please clap. That's amazing. But we're forgetting a lot of what we're deep rooted in when it comes to the UX world. And I don't care if you're self-taught, autodidact, or you went through some program. The fact is we are a very academically rigorous profession.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you're not spending a lot of time trying to learn, you're not going to really do well or succeed. And to Janessa's point, it's additive. So you can't go straight to calculus if you haven't learned trig or algebra. So the same thing kind of goes with what we do. Sure, there are some sort of places in our wheelhouse where you can explore independently, but for the most part, you will find that your journey is very additive.
Yeah. You just made me think about something else too, both of you, when you talk about the education aspect of this. Another initiative I have, I'm supposed to be hopefully wrapping up my PhD by the middle of the year, hopefully.
Where's your clap sound? That's awesome.
Yeah.
We
You're
just
so
throw it in there. But another initiative that I have on my radar, I can't do it until I'm done with my PhD work. I am planning to design a structured self-learning path for UX professionals. Because everybody can't do the degree program. Everybody can't do a degree program. Everybody can't afford it. Some people do some of the certificates. There are some programs out there. I have a blog post where I talk about, here's some recommendations for where you can get formal education. But it's time to build on that, because I spoke at an event once and somebody said, yeah, because I know Darren is big on experience or big on education, and you got to get a degree and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, dude, where did you hear me say that?
Yeah.
Never heard you say that.
I've been doing you, and I'm there, and I'm like, wow, these people, well, they really, and it's the same sort. We were talking about this before we started the recording. I got a whole host of people. They just love putting words in my mouth. Sometimes because I have melaninitis. If you haven't noticed, I have a condition. I call it melaninitis. You can see it in my skin here. Some of you might be able
What
to
do they
catch that.
say? They say when you have a lot of haters, you must be doing something right. So I think
Yes.
you're okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's, but the reality of it is, it can be very painful. It can be very
for sure.
traumatic, and
Yeah.
it can be very distracting. And so, but I still manage it,
Yeah.
and we still go on because I love what I do. There's an old proverb that says that many waters can't quench love, and that's basically
Yeah.
what it is.
And
If
you-
you love something, nothing's
Yeah.
going to stop you, basically. And
You're a
so,
genuinely caring person too.
Yeah.
People don't get that.
yeah,
I
and
don't
people
know why.
they don't like
You,
that.
you care.
I love how somebody says, Darren, it's something to read your post, but man, to hear you talk, you really, like, yeah. So now you get it. And that this is not about me at all. My passion is not about me. I respect the discipline. This is not about Darren Hood being a star of anything, but this is about trying to establish something so in 20 years, Jenessa can bring along the next another generation of UXers. That's what I'm doing. And I'll be under the tree again in between sips of tea, but this time I'll really be in between sips of tea. But the person was making jokes about me being a person who got where I got because of my degrees. No, go back and look at my timeline. I started doing this work. It's actually be 30 years this year. So I started doing this work in 95, and I had an associate's degree, a liberal arts associate's degree. I didn't get my first bachelor's degree, my first undergrad degree until 2006. I started working and I got my first full-time UX gig in 2005. So I got my first undergrad degree while I had my first full-time UX degree. I was no longer doing it part-time during the day or 3/4 of the time. I'm now doing it as a full-time. That's my job title now. I was an information architect. So that UX, the earlier UX, popular UX title. I got my first master's degree in 2011 from Syracuse University. It was a UX-related master's degree. I went and got a second UX-related master's degree, and I wasn't trying to – I like filling gaps. I love education. Don't get me wrong. I love education. And I'll get to my punchline with this in a moment. But I went through the second one because I had heard about Kent State's program. I wanted to go to that program. I wasn't ready to start paying student loans. So I went to start doing this. But I wanted to experience more. It was like, I call it the quintessential ethnographic study. I went to Iowa State. I went to Drexel. I went to DePaul. I went to, what's that East Coast school that a bunch of people go to that for some reason I'm blanking on? Right now, Bentley. I went to Bentley. So I went to these schools because this was part of a big ethnographic study on my part because I wanted to know what all of the learning experiences were like at these institutions firsthand, because I had a goal to eventually start teaching, which I'm now doing. And now I know what the experiences are like at all these schools. And I have all of this data, and I'm doing something with it. So that's why I did that. But the punchline is I was ready for it. Self-taught.
What? No
I was
way.
self-taught.
I'm leaning in now. This is getting interesting.
I feel like I kind of knew that based off of conversations, though, just in how you walking us through stuff like that in the past. Yeah.
Yep.
That's
I was
amazing.
self-taught. So I want to borrow from that experience, and I want to establish a formal self-taught learning path for people who can't do any of the other way. I really love to do this. I'm falling in love with it. What can I do? I'll have a way for people to go. I got people coming to me who want that, who want a self-taught path to go about. So we're talking books, we're talking videos, we're talking about me producing a lot of content where people can do that. And then you can go and I'll probably have something. It'll probably be behind a paywall. Some of it will, some of it won't.
Absolutely, yeah.
And this is what you can do to learn how to do UX. The reality of it is, and part of the reason I went to get the degrees, because when I worked at OnStar, they would not, even though I was doing all of this fantastic work, some of which people stole, but we won't get into that today. They would not hire me full time because I didn't have a degree. Even though I was going and I was doing all of this fantastic work, they could not. So a lot of companies, you cannot get hired without a degree. At a lot of companies, that's the reality of it. And there's a lot of people who, it's funny how they I've talked about this before on the show. They cry about the gatekeeping that's happening in academia, but that ensures the quality of the people. People cry about not being able to teach because they don't have a degree. Well, it's required. When I found out that you couldn't teach without a degree, a master's degree at least to teach in some schools, I just went and I qualified myself. I didn't cry about it, sit over in a corner. When they won't let me teach. Well, I didn't do that. I went and I found out what they required, and I respected it. And I went and I got it. And so when people cry about that, all of you out there, just shut up. Go, go get qualified. Darren, that's rude. No, I'm saying it because people need to hear the intensity behind that statement. Not to disrespect anybody. I'm trying to help you understand. You can't keep crying about something that's a reality and demanding that people conform to your reality and your unwillingness to conform. Stop making people conform to your unwillingness to conform. If they require it, then go get it. Well, I can't do that because of X, Y, and Z. Then I guess you won't be able to do it. That's the
It's his
reality
life.
of it. Yeah, that's life. Welcome to it. Welcome to it. That's just the way that things work. So we have to make sure that what are the requirements?
Mhm.
I want to be a doctor. I'm not going through all that training. They should let me be a doctor anyway. Well, you can go down to Borneo and become a witch doctor maybe, but other than that, you're not you can stick a bone in your nose and go do the whole thing and you can be a witch doctor. You have to go through the rigors of the requirements. There are rigors. There are rigors,
Mhm.
whether you like it or not. There are rigors associated with becoming a fully bona fide and qualified UX professional. There are rigors. You don't just sit there and say, and I've seen people do it, I want to be in UX, and the next thing you know, they are. And the next thing you know, a lot of those same people are lying about the amount of experience that they have. I'm one guy I know, I've been doing UX for 9 years, and he's been doing UX for 9 minutes. The person had never done UX a day in his life until he got in that job and he changed his resume. And a lot of people are doing this. They're changing their resume to look like they have more experience than they do, and they don't. That's disingenuous. It's
Yeah.
unethical. You're misrepresenting the discipline. You're making people look bad. You're making the discipline look bad. You're hurting people. Remember, we impact. I don't think we talked about this here. I think we talked about this before we started recording. We talked about this with the last AMA group. UX impacts people at the life-death level and at the quality of life level.
Yep.
Every UX job, every UX professional does that. We have to respect that. And so get qualified. You wouldn't want anybody removing your tonsils. You wouldn't want anybody working on your car. You wouldn't want anybody just giving you a pedicure. You could go get a pedicure, and if the wrong person does it, you're in the hospital with an infection.
So true.
And in some places, you have to be licensed to be able to do that. UX is no different. And I know Jonathan hasn't plugged the American Board of Design yet in the licensing initiative. I've talked about it on the show before, but he's the founder of that initiative. And we're trying to we're going to normalize having that degree of qualifications. Somebody, a third party who can validate who you are. We're working on that right now so that people
Yeah.
can look and they know. I've talked on the podcast before. I talked about how the CPA, how that testing came to be, because people were hiring anybody off the street to do their accounting, and a lot of businesses were going belly up because they had unqualified people doing it. Somebody shared in the last AMA session that it was the thing with Volkswagen that person, I think they went to jail. The
Yeah,
person
they
who
did.
falsified the reading, we're
Yep.
heading toward a society where if you engage in UX malpractice, and you can pay the price for it, or one way or another, people are going to have to be validated that they know what they're doing. That's
Yeah.
why I
Yeah.
say
mean,
this could
that
be a phenomenal year.
yes, it sounds like a good one. But let me piggyback on that, because that's exactly why the board was created. We have rules, we have regulations. We're not at a point anymore where we can be a Wild West. Things are getting so out of hand. There are a lot of examples like that. Volkswagen one. And it's been brewing for a long time. This isn't something new. So I do hope this is that year where people take the profession serious, understand that they're practitioners, understand like what we were talking about before the show. We had like an amazing conversation explaining that, yeah, you do have a responsibility, and who are you beholden to right now? Like, where are the consequences if something goes wrong? Like, we need to make sure that going forward, folks are really serious about their practice. And yeah, I'm not going to plug it, but if you guys want go check it out. Or contact me and we'll talk about it. But yeah, you guys, if you're interested in getting a license, reach out to us or go to the American Board of Design .org.
Yep. I mean, and there's a lot of things. It'll be a while before it's going to get the traction I think that we really want, but everything starts somewhere. And we're working on that now. We've got people both inside the United States, people outside the country are working on this. This is a big initiative, and we need to have a means of viability so that the posers and the retrofits and the upstarts, they've got to be held accountable. And a lot of companies are starting to wake up. I shouldn't say a lot. The ball's rolling really slow, but companies are starting to wake up, and that person really doesn't know what they're doing. I never forget
Yeah.
one company I worked at, and that I told this story to somebody the other day. My boss kept saying, "I don't know anything about UX." I'm like, well, I've had a boss that didn't know anything about UX, and he was the best boss I ever had. This guy could be just as good as that guy. And the first guy, he knew what he knew. He knew what he didn't know. He knew that what he hired me for, he got away and let me do my job. That's one of the ways one of the reasons he was the best boss I ever had. This guy, he kept saying it. "I don't know anything about UX. You're the expert. I'm going to defer to you." But then as soon as somebody wanted to assault our department, then you found out where he really stood. And I found out why he kept getting promotions, because he was big on self-preservation. And when
Mm.
somebody came at us and he didn't know anything about UX, he didn't support me. He didn't stand for me. He didn't do the right thing. And the next thing you know, everything falls apart. And so it's we shouldn't have to go through that. Whether it's the person in charge of the group should at least know something about UX, enough to be held accountable for what UX is doing, enough to be able to stand and advocate for the people in the department. And any UX practice out there that doesn't have a true senior on it has problems.
Right.
You automatically have
Yeah.
problems. And
Well,
then go ahead, Jonathan. Sorry.
I was gonna say the landscape is changing, so we can't afford anymore to have this sort of Wild West scenario. I mean, people are getting terrified when they're doing interviews that they might be talking to a bot or like, some fake video or something like that, right? So how do we how do we hear the narrative to be focused more on, truth, objective reality, things that are measurable, and that's the whole concept, right? So I really hope that this is the year that people catch on and understand that that's what we're trying to do. It's just a natural progression. It's not like someone coming down on anyone. It's just, this
Right,
happened with
right.
lawyers. This happened, pedicurists have to have a license. This happened, right? People got hurt, people died, and then, this came about. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really something. Jenessa, do I see your wheels turning on that one?
I was just gonna say the only people that I can foresee having a problem with this are people who just shouldn't be doing the work anyways. So, because I'm
Yeah.
excited. I remember Darren, when you told me about it a while ago. I think it might have been a little bit over a year ago, something like that. And it was always expressed that, it's still being churned out. But I was always really excited about it. I think really all it is it's another way to demonstrate what you should already be able to do, so it really
Yes.
shouldn't be a big deal anyways.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm super excited about this, and I'm glad to hear about it again because it's been a minute since I've heard. I wasn't sure where things were with it, so yeah, and any young designers, as long as you are authentic in where you are and you are committed to excellence and learning, you will be fine.
Yes.
It's not a death sentence on your career if you're actually in it for the right reason.
Yeah, right. Yeah, nobody has to be afraid of a validation effort.
Yep.
As long if you bring something to the table, how many movies have we seen that in? It's a checkpoint. The only person trying to get past the checkpoint is the person that the checkpoint was actually established to catch. That's the only person, and they take go down the side road or something like that, or they drive through the barrier. That's him. Everybody get him, because that's who they were trying to. I mean, how many times have we seen that? So it's I'm hoping for, again, great things this year. We begin to wrap up here. I'm expecting great things. I'm looking for great things. I'm going to do my part to make sure that we do have great things, that we accomplish great things this year. I'm hoping that we can get more people excited about the discipline in a genuine way. I'm hoping that we can see more this year. I'm hoping that there's more genuine interest in the discipline and not people chasing checks. There've been way too many people chasing checks. It's been more of a problem. And so again, I'm going to do my part, whether it's the education that I'm doing at the different schools, whether it's the Kaizen UX rendezvous and meeting people there. And I know that's a tough time and people can't make it, but hopefully more people will start to do that. I started trying to shift it. I thought about shifting it to Saturday, but I don't know about that. I don't know if people are ready for that. So, and get away in my movie schedule. I got to get away from the computer. It's the only way you can get me away from the computer most of the time, or me and my wife's movie night. Movie night. But folks, thank you for your time. This has been dynamite. As always, I love these kinds of conversations. And of course, you folks are welcome back anytime. When you want to come on the show, you just let me know. Hey, sure. And even sometime when I'm flying solo, I think it'd be great to have somebody there to bounce something off of. I think it's just great. Yeah, I don't like just listening to me. I'm sure other people don't. Just like just
Yeah,
listening
I
to
mean,
me.
that's really awesome. I will take you up on that for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Anytime. So thank you again, Jenessa. Thank you again, Jonathan. Is closing moments time. Any closing words from you, Jenessa?
Stay curious.
Oh, love
That's
that.
it.
Love
Stay
that.
curious.
Dynamite.
Wow.
Dynamite. Jonathan, closing words from you, sir.
Yes. Be a good person.
And that is worth its weight in gold. So that is it for this session, this Ask Me Anything session with Jenessa and with Jonathan. And folks, until next time, remember, check out the teas, check out the cups. You saw Jenessa's cup earlier. Check out the UX is not equal to UI t-shirts. Check out the cups, check out the merchandise. Go to kaizentees.com. Always got to give a plug for that these days. Go over there, check out the site. Any merchandise you'd like to see, let me know, and we will put something together and put it out there for you. And that poster is coming soon. The redesigned version of that landscape of UX with the 4 pillars is coming in the not too distant future. You'll be able to buy it for the first time out there. We're going to have the updated version of it in the not too distant future. But thank you for taking the time to join us on the show today. Out there, those of you listening, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to tell your friends about us. The show is a benefit to you. Then let's get the word out. Word's getting out about garbage. Let's get the word out about something that's actually going to impact people the right way. But again, until next time, this is Darren Hood, the host of The World of UX, signing off. Till next time, happy UXing, everybody.